Joining us now, NBC News senior investigative producer Sarah Fitzpatrick, Financial Times columnist and provost of King's College, Cambridge, Gillian Tett, and Atlantic staff writer and MSNBC analyst Ashley Parker. So, Ashley, to get everyone up to speed on what is happening right now, there are no plans for a Trump-Musk call today, according to the chief of staff. Trump is leaving for Bedminster right in about an hour, and the two of them are tweeting. We're posting on social media, but they're not posting on social media about each other. So is this thing going to die down or what?
So the true answer is nobody knows, including it sometimes feels like the president and Elon Musk himself. We have certainly seen a bit of a de-escalation from yesterday, whereas you put it, Elon Musk was willing to sort of out crazy Trump. One of the things that's fascinating is when some of Trump's other political rivals, I'm thinking most notably of Marco Rubio in the 2016 campaign, but there have been a number. When they try to go tit for tat with Donald Trump, you can it doesn't feel authentic to them. Their heart isn't in it. It's not their natural state. But it's very clear that Elon Musk is very comfortable using his voice, using his platform, using his money to ratchet things up in a way that President Trump has not experienced from a rival, and not just a rival, but someone who is Tapi put it to me the other day. Trump began his term only, 5-6 months ago, overly enamored with Elon Musk. So this is a real evolution in that relationship. And I think there will be more twists and turns to come, potentially even before your 2 hours are over, Katie.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Ashley. When people would ask me, and I'm sure you got this question a lot, ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration, whether this Musk relationship would last, my answer was this could last for a little bit longer than you expect, at least. Because Musk is not like anyone that Donald Trump is infatuated with momentarily. He's not so easily to use up and discard as some of the other people in his orbit have been, because Musk is just so rich, Ashley. I mean, he lost 150 or so billion dollars yesterday with the crash of Tesla stock down 14%. But he still has hundreds of billions of dollars more. Does the White House see this rift as risky for them?
Well, yesterday when I was talking to people inside the White House, the truth is they were consuming it in the exact same way that you and I were, Katie, which is just following every, ping pong ball back and forth. They kind of just couldn't believe what was happening. It is true, and there is an understanding, and I think you've even seen this from President Trump, and that he was more muted than he might have been when this began yesterday, that he understands that on the one hand, Elon Musk does need him in certain ways. Those government contracts are incredibly valuable to him. But Elon Musk exists outside of Donald Trump. He has his money. He has his status as the richest man in the world. Regardless, he has his voice on his social media platform. He has these other companies that in many ways are at the forefronts of their respective industries. So he doesn't need Donald Trump in that way. What was fascinating to me was I would not have predicted it would have imploded in this way, because my reporting was when Elon Musk left his position as a special government employee, he left on sort of, I would put it, lukewarm terms. I found out, talked to a couple of people yesterday who said Elon had privately talked about, well, maybe I could extend my time in the White House. And Trump kind of politely said, nah, you've done a great job. You can leave now. So they weren't quite as close as they were at the very frenzied beginning of that situationship. But it was a good lukewarm relationship. And I remember thinking at the time in writing in The Atlantic, this is one of the few times someone has exited Trump's orbit with, a modicum of sort of grace and non-controversy. And then it kind of just blew up 5 days later in a way I don't think anyone was at least initially anticipating.
I like the way you use situationship there, Ashley. One of the things that seemed intended to, blow up the internet yesterday, Sarah, was Elon Musk sending out a post about Jeffrey Epstein. And just gives a little bit of background on why talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the Jeffrey Epstein files is so socially explosive.
Katie, you're absolutely right. It is socially explosive, and it is very distracting. I have spent years and years going across the country and across the world looking into essentially anyone that ever was involved in the Epstein sex trafficking scheme or even was with him. And I think it's really important that Trump has always been somewhat adjacent in the sense that he socialized with Jeffrey Epstein, but has never, and he was part of that circle. And he was one of those people that Jeffrey Epstein used to give himself the appearance of being kind of accepted by society. And that's part of why the sex trafficking operation was able to go on so long. And Elon Musk recognizes that when the name Epstein is kind of transmitted on the internet, on Truth Social, on Twitter, elsewhere, it gets amplified by kind of communities of conspiracy theories who find this just such an attractive target. And secondly, it gets amplified, independent researchers tell us, by online bot groups that are connected to our foreign adversaries, because they too have found, by watching how explosive this topic and this conspiracy moves across the internet. And I think, I've had multiple Justice Department officials tell me, when this comes out of the Justice Department, when you see people talking about these alleged Epstein files, and again, we don't know exactly what that universe of material is. Some things that they have already released under the Trump DOJ have shown to be almost entirely information that has been in the public domain for almost a decade. But it is explosive and it is distracting, and it kind of hints at this conspiratorial thinking that kind of distracts from whatever the problem of the day is. So the minute I saw this stat yesterday, kind of as a viewer, I knew that this Epstein Trump mention was going to come, because it's just such an explosive and sticky, in the internet of ideas, it's a very sticky conspiracy concept.
That is such a good way to put it. It is sticky, and this idea that Elon Musk knows exactly what button to push and knows that if it's coming from him, that more people are going to latch on to it. There had already been some bubbling anger within the MAGA world that DOJ was not releasing anything. You just alluded to it. People were really upset at Kash Patel, have been, and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi for not being forthcoming. And for Elon Musk to just say, again, without evidence, that the reason they're not doing this is because of Donald Trump, that is intended to do harm to Donald Trump politically. We're talking about.
I think you can see. Sorry to interrupt you, Katie. I think you can see that. They kind of approach this idea, but we haven't seen any, they have the entire mechanism of the U.S. government. All of these agencies, the Department of Justice, you have a lot of people who are motivated, if there were something damning or destructive to anyone kind of that could be in these files. And what we've seen is that they have talked about this big game, but we see no real effort either behind the scenes. We see no indication that they have called, this kind of material, there's a lot of rules about who can see it, what has to happen before you can release it, especially with names of victims and minor victims. And I know from my reporting that the DOJ has not started that process of notifying or going through those steps. And so I think, we're seeing this, the Trump kind of White House, if they wanted to, could also kind of squash this. And we're not seeing them do that either. And I think that's a very interesting dynamic.
I think that's really interesting. You're right about that. We're talking so much, Jillian, about the domestic stuff here, but there are global implications for this sort of fracture. Tell me how foreign leaders are watching this.
Well, the way that I've made sense of Donald Trump from day one, as I've said many times, is to treat the White House like the court of King Henry VIII or Louis XIV in Versailles, where you basically got a Sun King surrounded by courtiers in different factions, and he's playing them off against each other. And you've really had three factions around Trump since the beginning of his tenure. On the one hand, you have the congressional Republicans, you've got the techno-libertarians, sort of epitomized by Elon Musk, and then you've got the populist nationalists, people like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. And that split matters for policy reasons for the rest of the world, because there's long been a bubbling split between the populist nationalists and the techno-libertarians like Elon Musk around issues like immigration, around the tariffs, around the direction of tax policy, really fundamental questions, and also around the question of China, which in some ways is even more important. And so what the wider world is asking right now is, yes, these kind of teenage tantrums are amusing. They make for extraordinary reality TV. It does remind me, as a mother of, two kids, of what I used to deal with when they were teenagers. But the really big question is, what does this mean in terms of policy making? Because even before this split, policy making was very unpredictable and capricious. But when you add into the fact you've got this fighting between the factions exploding into the open, it's really left American policymaking looking even more uncertain, not just inside the country and for markets, but also for the wider world.
There's also just some really very serious government contracts that have enabled the U.S. to not have so much reliance on others. I mean, when you're talking about SpaceX, it helped break NASA's reliance on Russian rockets. So the Dragon capsule, which brings astronauts to the space station, without the Dragon capsule, because it's Elon Musk's thing, then the U.S. has to go back to relying on the Russians and the Soyuz rockets. That's a big deal. Starlink also is integral for defense. I mean, you can see that in the way that it's being used in Ukraine. It's also extremely embedded within the American government and within the Pentagon, Gillian.
Absolutely. And the issue right now is that both Donald Trump and Elon Musk have enormous amounts of potential power and ways to hurt each other if they choose to do that. This really is like the very worst of some kind of crazy divorce scenario if this carries on being bad. And precisely because of that, you've already seen a number of senior Silicon Valley figures and business leaders tell the Financial Times and others that they desperately want this feud to be patched over. I mean, people like Bill Ackman have been out saying, this has got to stop because neither side can afford to essentially sustain the blows that the other side could essentially hurl at them right now. So it's really uncertain and destabilizing for markets and investors around the world.